Before I get started, just for on the outside chance that we're not sure, I just want to clear up a few things just to make sure we're all on the same page. When you hear someone talk of Elohim, they're talking about God the Father and God the Son. You hear Yahweh, that would be the personage of the Father, the God of the Old Testament, who was actually Yeshua, our Messiah. When you say Yahweh, when you speak of Yeshua, you're talking about the one that the world calls Jesus. Just want to make that clear so that there be no confusion. And if there is any confusion, I'm just trying to clear that up because I don't intend to apologize for confusion that's unnecessary. And I will never apologize for what God has done for us. That would be like apologizing for a gift. You thank someone for a gift. Now, for as long as I've been a part of God's church, this has always been an emotional day for me. You don't believe me? Ask my wife, she'll tell you. As it is for anybody who has lived for any amount of time down here in this, I'll just say what it is, it's a vale of tears. If you've ever felt lost, this day will be emotional for you. Not the loss of stuff. I'm not talking about burned down houses. I'm talking about stolen money, stolen wallets. I'm talking about loss, real loss. Not material things, not money. I'm talking about things that money can't replace. I lost my mother at 58 of cancer. Lost my father at 62, heart disease. Lost both sets of grandparents. Several uncles, aunts, a sister-in-law here at the feast about 3 years ago. Several cousins. Lost our first child in stillbirth. That's what I'm talking about. I'm sure if I were to poll all of you have stories of that kind of loss of loved ones. This is one of the many reasons that I've always looked forward to this day, not only in these rehearsals, but in the real Feast of Tabernacles, this last great day. I remember when I used to hate to see this day coming because that meant the feast was over. No more good food, no more good music, no more great companionship. And I would have to go back out there. And who knows what you're going to find when you get back home. You haven't been home in 8 days. Who knows what you'll find? I've heard stories of people going back to find home and find home wasn't there. But the older you get, the more you learn to accept it and deal with it, and you just go through it and you go back and live on as you always have. But this day will be the greatest day in the history of mankind. Anyone who says that men don't cry, live to see this day for real. Live to see this day. Let's drop anchor. Let's go to Revelation, the 21st chapter, the first verse. Revelation, the 21st chapter, the first verse. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. What does he mean there? We don't really know. But we know it means that this one will either be so cleansed that you won't recognize it, or possibly at some point in the future, it will become spirit. How do you do that? I don't know. Ask him when we get there. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth are passed away. and the sea is no more. Why? Because all of that water has to be gotten rid of. The purpose for it is no longer there. The flood was there to punish. Now there's no need for punishment, but there is a need for land. Why? Last calculation I heard, there were from Adam to now, 57 billion people, give or take a few, born on this planet from Adam to now, or to what will be the end. By then it may be up to 60 billion or so. Now, they're whining about 7.3 billion now. How do you think this world is going to hold up to 60 billion? There's your answer right there. The sea is no more. What happens to the seas? All that water goes away. All the land is filled in, made verdant. You can now live on that. Now you can live on that. And the sea is no more. Verse 2, and I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from Elohim, made ready as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of the throne saying, behold, the tabernacle of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them, and be their Elohim, or their God. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. I think I mentioned this yesterday. There was a cardinal that said that death is a friend. No, not a friend. That's why they said that it will be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. The first things are passed away. And he that sits on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. All things. Boggles your mind when you think about it, that everything you've ever thought of in your life, it comes to you in a new way. It's new. It's completely different. It's made ready for this new universe that is coming. And he said, write, for these words are faithful and true. And he said unto me, they are come to pass. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life, freely. He that overcomes shall inherit these things, and I will be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. Continue in verse 8. It gets interesting here. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Whoa, second death? Yeah. Implication quite clear that if there's a second death, there surely must be a second life. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls filled with the seven last plagues came to me and talked with me, saying, come, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, not the one that's over there now, the one that's just above it, descending, coming down out of heaven from Elohim, having the glory of Elohim. Her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Also, she had a great and high wall with 12 gates and 12 angels at the gates, and the names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. 3 gates on the east, 3 gates on the north, 3 gates on the south, and 3 gates on the west. Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, that would be of Yeshua. And he who talked with me had a gold reed to measure the city and its gates and its wall. The city is laid out as a square. When you hear him talk about 4 square, that's what they're talking about. Its length is as great as its breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs its length. Breadth and height are all equal. That makes it a 4 square city. Then he measured the wall, 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. The construction of its wall was of jasper, and the city was pure gold. There were jokes told about how certain people won't go up there because they'd be up there trying to chip out of the wall and steal and gold. No time for that. Throw that mess away. The foundation of the walls of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third carcine, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate was one of the pearls. And the streets of the city were pure gold, like transparent glass. But, notice this, I saw no temple in it. For the Master, Elohim Almighty, and the Lamb are its temple. The city had no need of the sun or of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of Elohim illuminated it. The Lamb is its light, and the nations of those who are saved. At this point, you can say, yes, you are saved, because at this point, we're here, we're there, we're past death, we're past pain, we're past all of that. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the kings of the earth bring its glory. Its gates shall not be shut at all by day, and there shall be no night there. And they shall bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it. But there shall by no means any enter into it that defile or causes an abomination or a lie. But only those who are written down in the Lamb's book of life. Going back, verse 20, verse 8. Interesting. Before that happened, something else happened. After the 1,000 years of peace, after we've all gone through all of this, all we've been taught, and we were teaching those few that were left after the tribulation, after the destruction of those who first attacked this city. 1,000 years went by. Teaching went on. The whole of the earth was built in preparation for these 57 to 60 billion people who are coming in this second resurrection. They were coming, and no one believed this. Some still don't, but it's real. But you got to understand, after they said, what did they say? That he had to be released for a little while. Satan had to be released for a little while. Go back to Revelation 20. Verse 7. Now, when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And as I said yesterday, it's just hard for me to believe that after seeing this 1,000 years of peace, seeing the world rebuilt in such a way that we can't believe the beauty of it. You look at your own home, you can't even believe the beauty of it. You look at the land, you look at the fact that your work is so easy that it almost seems like fun instead of work. And now all of a sudden, a small group, oh, it's not a small group. It's not a small group. Gog and Magog decide, how is it that Satan, after all these years of peace, suddenly can find all these people that can say, let's do this, let's take over? Verse 9, they went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints in the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Oh, we've got so much. We're going to blow it up. We're going to take it. Fire came down, and in a second, they were all gone. All gone. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet were. And they will be tormented age to age. In other words, as long as God chooses this to happen. Your Bible might say forever and ever, but that's God's determining the time. Therefore, at some point in the future, if there is no more death, if there is no more sin, if there is no more evil, what you need Satan for? That's all he was good for. We don't need that anymore. Kill him off. In his time, not ours. Don't ask when, don't know. Verse 11. Then I saw a great white throne and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before Elohim. And books were opened. Which books? These 66. What are they there for? To show you how we should have lived. You're looking for a way to live? This is a good start. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. And notice what happens here. The sea gave up the dead who were in it. Oh, what about my uncle so-and-so? He was in a fishing accident and they never found his body. Who made that body? So guess who found it and brought it up to be judged? The sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades, or the grave, delivered up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. Now, a few others were brought up that maybe we don't think we're ever going to see again. How many of you have aborted children? Don't answer. Don't raise your hands. Just be assured those children will be raised up and they will be parented. You don't hear that often because most people don't want to talk about that, but it's real and it's going to happen. And these two were judged, each one according to his works. You're given an amount of time, some say 100 years or so, to prove, because you see, we're out here right now, they're teaching a million different religions, all of them different, all of them less than true. We don't believe that, but one day it'll become very obvious. And maybe you'll remember what you heard that day. But most of these religions are false, all except one. I'm not trying to draw anybody in, but it's this one. And when I say this one, I'm not saying it because I'm saying it because I'm here. I'm just saying it because it's the truth, because it comes out of this book, uncut. And it's real, and it's honest. And these things will happen. But once those people come up and they have gone through and been proven that this is the way to live, and they see it for the beautiful way that it is, and how peaceful it is, and how easy it is, you'll ask one question. What was I doing all those years? Why did I do that? Why didn't I just listen? Why didn't it make sense to me? Why didn't it come to me? Why didn't it make sense? After those people make it, they get the same reward. They become spirit and live on forever. You see, at this point in history, we will probably all look back, as I said, and cry at how easily it would have been if we had just listened. If we had just listened, we could have made it. If we'd only been more obedient to Elohim, we would have made it. It would have been so much less troublesome to us. It would have been so much easier if we'd not been so self-willed and so rebellious. We will all see very clearly how this could have been done in the flesh, and we would never have had to go through the ordeals we suffer on a daily basis now. Might have had a little 8-day respite while we were here, but you're going to go right back into that hot water and resume. And it's not going to be any easier. As a matter of fact, just a little word to the wise, from this day forward, it's going to get a little harder. It'll get a little harder. We'll all see very clearly how this could have been done so much more easily if we'd just listened. But the great thing about it, the things that will end on this last great day are those things that make it difficult for us all. This will be the end of the bigotry, the end of the class hatred, the end of false religions, the end of family divisions brought on as a result of differences in religion. It could be easy to stand here and guess at what Elohim will do on this last great day when it is fully come. And I'm sure others out there will do that. I don't have time for that. I'm not that imaginative that I think that I can come up with things to do that are at least even close to what Elohim would come up with. But I'll tell you what I will do, though. It's time to try to gain and store as much power from this day as possible in order to go back out there into a world that, quite frankly, does not understand what this day, what this life. Why did they go all the way out there? What are they doing out there? They took all that food out there. They cook all that food. And who are those people they out there with? They still believe that strange stuff there? I can't believe that. The world does not understand this day. The other thing they don't understand that this day is on the horizon for us all, either from spiritual construct or a physical construct. Now, how many of you want to be spirit on that day? Just asking. I don't need to see any hands. Just think to yourself. Because if you're spirit on that day, you won't have to go through this again. If you're physical on that day, you got 100 more years to prove you can do this. Interesting little concept that a lot of people don't know about. Not back there in that world. That world is mired in all the problems that we're praying will soon end. We're heading back into a world that is falling apart. For all the reasons we've alluded to here: bigotry, greed, paganism, the lack of real love, the lack of true faith, and a refusal to accept any power higher than the limited power of man. And we will go back and continue to be challenged by it more and more, and it will get worse and worse. And somehow we must endure. For no matter what surprises we go back into, we must come out of it all with our faith intact. Or all of this, if we fail, has simply been an exercise, a play, with a horrible script, by the way, whoever's idea this was. That will be our challenge. We do, however, have the advantage of knowing what is to happen. You see, it's all laid out in the Bible for us, but we have the added challenge of gracefully navigating our way through a world where Satan has convinced many that it can be successfully constructed and made better through vanity and greed. How many of you believe it can be made better by vanity and greed? Put your hands up. Didn't think so. We've seen enough of that. But however, knowing that we're dealing with a world that doesn't love us, doesn't care about us, doesn't believe what we believe, we cannot lose our ability to love mankind, at least in an agape way. This will be the beginning of our downfall if we get to that point where you start talking about who you hate and don't even know them other than what you read about them in the paper or the blog or somebody's other stuff. You see, these last few election cycles, not just this last one, don't think it got bad here. No, it's been bad for a while. We just didn't recognize it because our guy was there and we thought it was cool. Sorry, it wasn't cool for everybody. In the end, you're going to find out it wasn't cool for anybody. The last few election cycles have unearthed all of the hypocrisy, all of the greed, all of the hatred, all of the evil just under the surface of this country. It scratched a little bit and it all started coming out. It was always there, but nearly all of the veneer that hid it is now blown away. Now it's all out there. That's why you hear everybody wants to protest. Everybody wants to get up in a window and shoot down the people that they think don't think like them and don't think that that was the last one. It's only going to get worse from here. The hate was always there. The greed was always there. You hear them down there on the alley. Not that one. I'm talking about Wall Alley. Y'all call it Wall Street, but in all honesty, it's so dirty, you might as well call it an alley. Because that's what it is. They believe in greed down there. You even heard that guy, what was his name? Well, it was a movie, but the movie was real. It was about a real guy, Gordon Gekko. What'd he say? Greed is good. Yeah, for the greedy. Not too good for anybody else. Hate is good. You have to get a good thing of hate building if you want to hurt people. Who really wants to hurt people? Who really wants to hurt people? Be honest. But like I said, it's always been there. This ugliness has always been there. It's all coming out now, though. Hopefully, however, none of the true saints of Elohim are caught up in this sin, and that is what it is, sin. Don't fool yourself. But again, we cannot lose our ability to love our fellow man. Yeshua asked a very pointed question when he was here, one that is very much germane to our plight here now. Luke, the 18th chapter, the 8th verse. Luke, the 18th chapter, the 8th verse, where it says, I say unto you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, wow, even the flies want to hear it. That's good. Not for me, but good for them. I'll try not to kill them, let them hear a little bit. I say unto you that he will avenge them speedily there. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, shall he find faith on the earth? Faith, for those who are studying, that's G4102. Pistis, the female noun meaning faith, subjectively meaning firm persuasion, conviction, belief in the truth or veracity of a thing. Reality or faithfulness, though rare, objectively in our case, meaning that which is believed as doctrine, the received articles of faith in truth as taught in the Bible. The Bible itself defines faith this way. Let's go to Hebrews, the 11th chapter, the first verse. Hebrews, the 11th chapter, the first verse, where it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. I like the way the ISV phrased this. He says in verse 3, by faith we understand that time was created by the word of Elohim, so that what is seen was made from things that are invisible. We as believers, having this faith, now is the time to see clearly the sins of the world, if for no other reason than to stop participating in them. And when allowed to try to teach them by our good example, a different, and how did Paul say it, a more excellent way than that of the world. We cannot so hate the sins of the world that we no longer care for those in the world. They're just as deceived as we were at one time. We have been so wrong in this. We have to try to teach. That's got to happen to the degree that if it's nothing more than showing them an exemplary life, we have to teach. Then we must, this might be hard, but sorrow for them. Not agreeing with them, but feel sorry for the fact that they think that this is okay, and that no matter how hellish their lives are, well, it's okay. I mean, everybody else is going through it, so it must be okay. No, it's not okay. Pray for the repentance of those who believe but don't have the understanding. Pray that they will come to that understanding one day and recognize the true state of this world. Why? There's a reason we should at least have them think, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something wrong with this. Right up until the end, Elohim is going to be looking for people who are thinking, something wrong with this. Something's not right here. Somebody said, if you're going to say it up there, you better prove it. Okay, let's do that. Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, the 3rd verse. Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, the 3rd verse. And the glory of Elohim of Israel was gone up from the cherub, whereupon it was to the threshold of the house. And he called the man clothed in linen, who had the writer's inkhorn by his side. Who he's ready to write down some names. Now, of course, after Elohim writes down some names, you know what's coming next, don't you? Oh, yeah, you're going to whoop some. You got it. And he called to the man clothed in linen, who had the writer's inkhorn by his side. And Yahweh told him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that love what's going on and participate in the... Oh, no, wrong book, sorry. Let's go back through that again. He says, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry over all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. And to the others he said in my hearing, go you through the city after him and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have you pity. In other words, there's going to be a time when if you're going to continue to do that stuff, there will be no hope for you. Let not your eye spare, neither have you pity. Slay utterly the old man, the young man, and the virgin, and little children, and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark. The what? My mark he's talking about. H, 8420. Mark. The Hebrew, tall. A masculine noun meaning a mark, a signature. It is the name of the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it indicates an identifying mark or signature in a person. In the case of Ezekiel, it was a sign of exemption from judgment. In the world, however, it is the day he told you to worship. Just that simple. The day he told you to worship. What did he say? That this is a sign. A sign of this Sabbath, he said, was a sign that will identify my people as his own. You see, even right up to the end, however, Elohim will be marking those who have kept themselves pure and have not participated in this world's sin, including that day, but felt sorry for those who have. We must feel the same. For years, they do that day. They don't do what we do, so they're sinners. Let them die. We don't care. Time out for that. We were all. How many of you didn't come through that day? Didn't come through that day? Let's see some hands. Let me see, can I sit on mine? We all went through that. 6. Slay utterly the old man, the young man and the virgin and the little children and women, but come near, not near any man upon whom is the mark. And notice how God is. He said he was not a respecter of persons. So if we're going to start that booty kicking, where does he say start? And begin where? At my sanctuary. First, we're going to get the hypocrites. First, we're going to get the fakers. First, we're going to get the liars who lied in my name. Then they began at the old men that were before the house. Isn't it fascinating how the guys that are the biggest liars sitting right out the house? You know what? Y'all should be doing this. Don't listen to them. And he said unto them, defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. So it ain't a few of them, are there? If you filling up courts with them, it's not just a few. Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Go you forth. And they went forth and smote in the city. And it came to pass while they were smiting, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, oh Yahweh, will you destroy all the residue of Israel, and you're pouring out of your wrath upon Jerusalem? Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great. You hear people all the time, oh, we're going to do what the Jews do. Feel free. This is your future. Be careful. Some of what they do is right, some of it is not. Some of what we do is right, some of it is not. Get this stuff right. Get in the book. Shake it out. Let some of that dust come out there and get it right. Because if you don't have it right, he's coming after you. And if you're lying to somebody else about it, he's coming after you. Because in the end, there will be no lying and there will be no hypocrisy about this faith. None. He said, well, why are you going after everybody? Verse 9 again. Then said he unto me, the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of wresting of judgment. In other words, somebody do the right thing and they snatch him away from it. For they say, Yahweh has forsaken the land, and Yahweh sees not. In other words, do whatever you want to do. He's not there. He doesn't see you. For those looking for a title, the last shall be first. The last shall be first. This is a concept that long-time believers struggle with because of not so much a lack of understanding, but a feeling of entitlement. Elohim says we all must continue in well-doing and not falling away, but always be aware of those who have been around the way for a good while. Lift them up. Even when they seem unfeeling or seem to have forgotten Elohim's warning to them. Oh, what warning is that? 2 Thessalonians, the 3rd chapter, the 13th verse. 2 Thessalonians, the 3rd chapter, the 13th verse, where it says, brothers, do not get tired of doing what is right. If anyone does not obey what we say in this letter, take note of him. Make note of them. Figure them out. Know who they are. Note them. Have nothing to do with them so that he will feel ashamed. Yet, don't treat him like an enemy, but warn him like a brother. It is part of the human condition to want to step on or over someone that you feel is wrong. Stomp them in the ground. End it. That's not it. That's not the way to do it. But it is part of the human condition. That's why God wants us in spirit bodies. Just because someone doesn't believe the way you believe now doesn't mean that they won't come to it in the future. If you've already burned that bridge, how do you cross back to it? Can't do it. You see, our love combined with continual obedience to God's ways and laws will guarantee navigating this walk successfully. There are no saved places in line, if you will. There is no hierarchy. You don't get tenure here. You can be here 50 years, blow it, and fail as surely as Satan has. There's no advantage to being here for any length of time. If anybody has told you, the longer you've been here, the harder it is. Elohim's fairness is a fairness that earth has never understood or respected. This is what was meant when Elohim spoke it in Isaiah, the 55th chapter, the 8th verse. Isaiah, the 55th chapter, the 8th verse, he says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares Yahweh. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Elohim has made himself manifest in many ways. Many know it, but the world at large, even those who do know, largely choose not to acknowledge it, not to make it a part of their lives, not make it a part of how they live, how they think, how they feel, how they interact with those who don't feel, look, or act as they do. But if they do, scientists, philosophers, politicians, and the movers behind the shadows, they will never admit to a couple of things. Got too much power. It's kind of like the Romans with the Pharisees. They had them doing all that dirt, and it's going to eventually it eventually will catch up with them, as it will catch up with our shadow movers and shakers behind the scenes. Oh, he's talking about that conspiracy stuff. Oh, there is one. But I'm not going to talk about it. But if you want to know, I can tell you. But these scientists, these philosophers, these politicians, these shadow movers, they will at some point have to admit a couple of things are true that they really have a little trouble with right now. Number one, there is an Elohim. They struggle with that. If you missed it, there is a God. And if this is true, and this is the part they don't like, this is the part they don't dig, this is the part that gets them upset. Number two, he must be obeyed. He must be obeyed. But you see, this is not acceptable to most of those who have true power and influence in this world, because as a consequence, the world continues on its way of suffering and sin and acting as if, oh, we planned it that way. Because most are in closer agreement in principle with the one who did plan it that way, whether they realize it or not. And who was the one that did kind of sneak in behind him and plan it that way? We call him, what's his name? We won't even, you know how they do now, what they've started doing here lately, I find it repulsive, I find it ugly, I find it stupid, I find it bigoted, and I think that they need to stop it because it's stupid. All of a sudden, you got a man there that says respect the office, but they're going to give him a number. You hear people talking about 45, or you heard some before, 44. Go back and look at your list of presidents. You'll see what I'm talking about. Don't pretend you don't, because I know somebody here does. But it's wrong. But the world, as I said, continues on its way, suffering in sin, acting as if, oh, we planned it this way. But you know who did? Hasatan. Y'all call him Satan, the devil. Suffering is the result of human sin. The world is not the way that Elohim created it. It has been degraded, it has been rendered, it has been flawed, and it has been made vulnerable by the sins committed on it. The flood was caused by sin. Every hurricane, every storm, every tornado, every drop of rain came as a result of that sin. You want to say, oh, wow, the end is coming because of sin. It was all because of sin. Including the sins of the people of Elohim. Throughout time, as in their desperation, they've believed the devil's lies and have at times followed him into deeper sin. We pray for each other as we encounter it in our own lives. But the world of sin continues and its results multiply. Only through our continual prayers for each other as believers will the effects of the world of sin be mitigated in our lives. We might ask, why does one person suffer and another does not? Why do catastrophes happen to some and not to others? It's because sin is in the world. It is more than anything else the way of the world. Very random. That's why you pray for each other that it doesn't touch you. He does hear those prayers. The world does not understand these concepts because for the most part, the world's churches have done away with the concept of sin. Thus, they don't try to explain the concept of sin because they no longer accept the Bible's definition of sin. Sin is the cause of all of this. But you got to understand what sin is. 1 John, the 3rd chapter, the 4th verse. 1 John, the 3rd chapter, the 4th verse. Whosoever commits sin transgresses also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. The law being Elohim's law, the 10 Commandments and more, which along with the other mitigating factors may explain why man struggles so mighty with the spiritual concept of law. Man believes law is spiritual, but it is both spiritual and physical. Know this. Those who are not believers cannot accept these concepts because they're not discerned through the Holy Spirit. So long as their eyes are veiled from these things, they cannot see them clearly. Thus, only when the veil is removed can they see these things. For this is the only reason we have seen these things. We're no smarter than anybody else. Oh, we're so smart, we can figure it all out. We read the Bible with no spirit whatsoever, and we can tell you, we talk about how, well, we got this right, and we got it right, and we got all that, we got to, and still sin. Come on. Come on. 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, the 1st verse. 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, the 1st verse. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry as we have received mercy. In other words, you broke and you sinned and you repented, and now you have this ministry. If you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have it. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry as we have received mercy, and because of that, we faint not, but have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, not handling the word of Elohim deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of Elohim. But if our gospel be hid, in other words, if it be hid, or if we don't live by it, don't tell anybody about it, don't try to share it with anyone, go around and act as if it's ours. Oh, he's our God, he's not theirs. If our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God, small g, of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Messiah, who is the image of Elohim, should shine upon them. For we preach not ourselves, but Yeshua, Messiah, the Master, and ourselves, your servants, for Yeshua's sake. For Elohim, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Elohim in the face of Yeshua, Messiah. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of Elohim and not of us. In other words, the reason that you don't have spirit yet, because you're not ready for it. And as long as if you had spirit, you could do it all for yourself. And then you can say, I did this all myself. No, it's not how he wants it. Not how he wants it. This flesh keeps us honest, keeps us in the recognition of who has the real power here, and allows us, when we fall, to repent continually of our sin, knowing that we have no hope without the grace of Messiah. That our salvation is because of his grace, not our innate goodness or our great good looks or how intelligent we are, what degrees we have. No. That our salvation is there. We have no cause to boast independent of him. We were given this truth while in the flesh in order that it be proven that the Godhead has put forth this plan, not man. In living as human beings, we all are proof of the depth of his plan. Yet we are expected to teach others this plan when possible, back home when we return, and definitely in the world to come at the second resurrection. But first, through example when we get back home. You see, Elohim expects us to spread out as salt, teaching by example this way of life. And this is the most important way that it happens, whether we're aware of it or not. We prove the power of Elohim in our lives, or the lack of the effect of his power, by the way we live. What do I mean by saying that? The stronger he is in us, the more of a light we are. The more we pretend, argue amongst each other, or go out and say we're doing one thing and then get home and do something completely different. Now, the world sees that. They're like kids. Watch your kids. The kids looking at you all the time. You want to see a broken family? Follow a broken kid home. You want to see a hypocritical family? Follow a hypocritical kid home. You want to see a family that stands on the promises? Follow a kid home that's doing all the right things all the time. They will break you out. I say, well, excuse me, going back on Elohim and telling the truth with a little Ebonics them kids will bust you out. They will show you. They will embarrass you. Believe me, they will. They have a radar for hypocrisy. First, they'll show it up by how they act. And then they will perfect it in their own lives, no matter how much you try to teach them. It's just the way it is. But we have to prove the power of Elohim in our lives every day, despite the sin that surrounds us and abounds us, challenging us daily. This life is the example that we must show others 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 and 1/4 days a year. Showing contempt for the people of the world will never convince them. We don't have to agree with them, but we must pray for them to repent. Show them a better way, not by what we say, but by the lives we live. And we cannot do that if we show outright contempt for them as people. It doesn't work that way. Do we show our best to those whom we hold in contempt? Don't answer, just hear me out. Do we show our best to those we consider less important than we think they are? Do we show our best to those who don't make as much money as we do? Don't answer, I've seen it. Do we show our best to those who we feel are already lost? Don't answer. I'm not. Do we show our best to our enemies? Do we show our best to family members who are not believers or have wronged us because of our faith? You see, Paul spoke of these attitudes in Acts, the 24th chapter, the 15th verse. Acts, the 24th chapter, the 15th verse, where it says, "And have hope toward Elohim, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust." In other words, he's going to give everybody a chance. Why don't we? Now, obviously only the just or the repentant will survive, but all will eventually be given that opportunity. Verse 16, and herein do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward Elohim and toward men. Oh, this is hard stuff. Believe me, it is. This is hard stuff. This is not easy. But then again, anything worth having is not going to be easy. If it was easy, I don't want that. I can get 1,000,000 of those. You're not going to get 1,000,000 kingdoms of God, because there's only going to be one, and everybody's not going to be there. This is why there are first fruits. The first in line get hit with all the flack. Any old infantryman will tell you that everything we go through is only there to make us stronger saints. Every time that fly hits my forehead, it just makes me stronger to stand up here and deal with this. Because he's obviously listening, because he won't leave me alone. Or maybe he's one of those drones. I don't know. Everything we go through is only making us stronger as saints, able and willing to teach in the age to come because of what we're learning, because of the hard things we're going through right now. Because when you see somebody else going through it, hey, I did that once. This is how you get around that. Let me show you how to get around that. I've been there. That's why we're all here. Oh, why he drink all the time? And then when you start drinking, that's the guy to talk to. This is why you stop. This is how you can stop. This is how you can do it. The guy that's on drugs. Oh, this is, I don't want to be around. That's the guy you need once you fall that way yourself. Because he's been there. He fell, but he got up. And now he can reach you down and pull you up. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Able and willing to teach in the age to come because of what we're learning, because of the hard times we're going through. And some of those hard times, we're putting ourselves through it. Let's be honest. Like I said, I used to hate going back in the early days, and it's not a whole lot easier now, but we see more clearly this plan now. This should give us a little strength when we go back. Now, note the words of Yeshua in Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 43rd verse. Matthew, the 5th chapter, the 43rd verse, where it says, you have heard that it has been said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Oh, that's so easy, isn't it? About as easy as you're hitting your head on a lead pipe. "45, that you may be the children of your Father, which is in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if we love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? The lawyers the same? If we take anything away from this feast, please take this. We must lose our anger over the sins of the world, because we've all committed them. And the sins of the brethren in the faith, we've all committed them. We are not yet Elohim's judges, so don't try to be his executors. These people haven't been tried yet, so they haven't been sentenced. So why keep whipping on them? We're expected to judge all manners rightly as we see them in the world right now. Judging in this case means being able to observe all things and make a determination of what has happened and what Elohim may do in the times to come. That doesn't mean we do it now. He said we would be judges, not executioners. That's somebody else's job. What did he say? Vengeance is mine. We are in training now, learning how to judge. And know this, no one ever made a righteous judgment. I always say it all the time. 2 times you don't make a decision. When you're scared, when you're mad. That's when we want to whoop on somebody. Not good. Don't do that. No one ever made a righteous judgment in anger and wrath or fear. Proverbs, the 15th chapter, the 18th verse. Proverbs, the 15th chapter, the 18th verse, it says, a wrathful man stirs up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeases strife. Proverbs, the 28th chapter, the 25th verse. He that is of a proud heart stirs up strife. He that puts his trust in Yahweh shall be made fat or enlarged, given their needs in plenty. Fairness and level-headedness are necessary at all times. And believe me, with what we will be going back to, it will be a challenge. Markets that may tumble, gas and food prices that are already starting to rise, jobs leaving the country. The ones that are still around don't pay nearly what they used to. We're heading back into tough times. And yes, they can and will get even tougher. Even the book tells you that. But let's take our spiritual aim just a little bit higher. We've already heard it said by the world, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. They go crazy too. But I believe we've already had 6,000 years of proof of this. Proof that this world's concept of tough does not work. Maybe we should try something different. Let's try this. When the going gets tough, the sheep follow the shepherd. Follow the shepherd. Follow the words and will of Messiah. As believers, we know what's coming. We've waited for it. Some are excited about it. I feel sorry for y'all. It's a little bit different when you understand it a little bit more fully. The world knows something is in the wind, but many don't know what. A lot of us don't know specifically what, and it's not necessary that we do. When it comes, we have already been told we will be warned. We've already been told that. But they know something's coming. Many are waiting for someone to tell them what's happening, and they might actually believe it. You see, if we don't respect them and are not willing to guide them, who will tell them the truth? If we're the only watchmen and we don't watch and don't warn, if they fall, whose fault is it? If, when the tribulation is fully come, we don't warn them, how will they find the truth? We know the difference. Notice the words of Paul, and if it reads a little bit different, I'm using the ISV for this because it is very clear. Romans, the 8th chapter, the 6th verse. Romans, the 8th chapter, the 6th verse. To focus our minds on the human nature leads to death. But to focus our minds on the Spirit leads to life and peace. That is why the mind that focuses on human nature is hostile toward Elohim. It refuses to submit to the authority of Elohim's law because it is powerless to do so. Indeed, those who are under the control of human nature cannot please Elohim. And as long as you're in that flesh, what nature are you under? I thought so. I feel so every day. Verse 9. You, however, are not under the control of the human nature, but under the control of the Spirit, since Elohim's Spirit lives in you. What did it say? If his Spirit is not in you, it's not his. So you better get somewhere and figure it out and make sure that baptism was right. And that hands were laid on you for that Holy Spirit to make sure that Spirit is in you. Don't question me. Look in the Bible. And then when you get the answer, do what you got to do. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Messiah, he does not belong to him. There it is right there. Ray didn't say it. It's right there. Right there. Verse 10, but if the Messiah is in you, your bodies are dead due to sin, but the Spirit is alive due to righteousness. Not yours, his. And if the Spirit of the one who raised Yeshua from the dead is living in you, then the one who raised the Messiah from the dead will also make your mortal bodies alive by his Spirit, which lives in you, if that be so. Consequently, brothers, we are not, with respect to human nature, that is under an obligation to live according to human nature. For if you live according to human nature, you are going to die. Simple concept. Many miss this, however. Others have been on this road of belief for so long that we believe that we can get away with a few things here and there. No, the Bible says no. But if by the Spirit you continually put to death the activities of the body, you will live. For all who are led by Elohim's Spirit are Elohim's children. For you have not received a spirit of bondage that leads you into fear again. Instead, you have received the Spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are Elohim's children. Now, if we are children, we are heirs, heirs of Elohim, and co-heirs with the Messiah. If in fact we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also live in his glory. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed to us. For the creation is eagerly awaiting the revelation of Elohim's children. They're out there blinking and excited about it. That would be each and every one of us who still obey and strengthen that spirit within us through prayer, through fasting, through love of one another, through living according to this law, doing the things that are right, not just at the Feast of Tabernacles, every day. Verse 20. Because the creation has become subject to futility, though not by anything it did. Satan did that. The one who subjected it did so in the certainty that the creation itself would also be set free from corrupting bondage in order to share the glorious freedom of God's children. For somebody who was looking for some proof that that universe out there is going to come alive one day, there it is. There it is. Meaning even the earth, even the universe is waiting to be liberated from the decay and corruption set in motion by Satan here on earth all the way out into the universe. What we think is the end of the earth and universe is actually their moans for freedom. Every earthquake says, get it off of me. Get it off of me. Get rid of it. Every time it rains, that's the earth crying. Get it off of me. Bring forth his children so we all live. Notice, before the flood, there was no rain. There were no tears. In the kingdom to come, there will be no rain. There will be no tears. Everything that happens out there is a moan, similar to our own. Meteor showers are tantrums of the universe. Sun flares, comets dislodged from depleted planets are all a result of sin and rebellion, all waiting for freedom in a new endless life of creating generated by our Elohim. Verse 21. For we know that all the rest of creation has been groaning with the pains of childbirth up to the present time. What are they having birth pains for? What are they pregnant with? A piece of rock. No. When all that comes alive, there will be living beings there. Who knows? We may create them. Can't be sure. It's not detailed in any concrete way here. He just gives us little hints because he knows if we can't deal with his plan, how in the world are we going to deal with the details of something that is so incredible we can't even imagine it? 23. However, not only the creation, but we who have the first fruits you all of us who have it, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, also groan inwardly as we eagerly await our adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For we were saved with this hope in mind. Now, a hope that can be observed is not really hope, for who hopes for what can be seen? But if we hope for what we do not yet observe, we eagerly wait for it with patience. In the same way, the Spirit also helps us in our weakness, since we do not know how to pray as we should. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans too deep for words. And the one who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, for the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to Elohim's will. And we know that for those who love Elohim, that is, for those who are called according to his purpose, all things are working together for good. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that the Son might be the firstborn among many brethren. Oh, that's blasphemy, that we can do the same things as he is, that we can have the same physical substance and body as he has. That's blasphemy. You all don't believe in oneness. No, we don't. Because we know from the beginning there wasn't oneness anyway. There was oneness of mind, but there were two. Get your mind blown when you find out after we all come into it, there will be billions. Whoa! Billions of beings who have the power of a God, but have been beaten and have been shaped and molded to the understanding that having the same power as an individual doesn't give you the same rank as that individual. Understand that, please, or it may be your undoing. (27) And the one who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, for the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to Elohim's will. And we know that for those who love Elohim, that is, for those who are called according to his purpose, all things are working together for good. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. Say it again so that we don't understand, that we might think about it one more time. In order that the Son might be the firstborn among many brethren. This does not mean, as some have said incorrectly, that Elohim has planned your every breath ahead of time. No. It simply means that he has set the plan in place and offered it to us all. The ones who followed it, at least to the end of it, all these things have been set in place from the beginning, like a set of railroad tracks. You stay on the tracks, you'll get it. You jump off, don't know what you'll get. Not every second of your life is pre-programmed. That's not free will. That's not free moral agency. That's something else. You see, that would mean that if you have no free moral agency, that means that you were forced to do this, right? That's not the way of Elohim. That's somebody else's way. What's his name? Verse 30. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified. What then can we say about all this? If Elohim is for us, who can be against us? The one who did not spare his own son, but offered him as a sacrifice for all of us, surely will give us all things along with his son, won't we? Didn't it say something about we were co-heirs with him? That means everything that he was given, we will get also, including his eternal life. 33. Who will accuse Elohim's elect? It is Elohim who justifies. Who is the one to condemn? It is the Messiah, Yeshua, who is interceding on our behalf. He died and, more importantly, has been raised and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Elo, if you need a name. I don't use my father's name. Don't want to get smacked. But just in case you want to know, that name is Elo. Who is the one to condemn? It is the Messiah, Yeshua, who is interceding on our behalf. He died and, more importantly, has been raised and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Who will separate us from the Messiah's love? Can trouble, distress, persecution, hunger, nakedness, danger, or a violent death? Will any of those do this? No. As it is written, for your sake, we are being put to death all day long. We are thought of as sheep headed for slaughter. In all these things, we are triumphantly victorious due to the one who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor anything above, nor anything below, nor anything else in all creation can separate us from the love of Elohim that is ours in union with Messiah Yeshua, our Master. Believe this. Please know that this day in history will reunite us all with all those who have died before us, whether those who believed or those who didn't in their time. We will have already reunited with all of those who died before us who were living in the truth of Elohim. This again will be the most tremendous day in the history of mankind, to teach our loved ones of our great Elohim, to meet Paul, meet Peter, Stephen, David, Caleb, and all those who fought side by side with Messiah throughout time, conquering the beast earlier. Yes, this will be the day when all mankind will finally get a chance to fully understand and obey the word of Elohim in truth and ultimately in spirit. And with all of those who have done it together, the conversations we will have. And know this, what he began in you, he'll complete it. Philippians, the first chapter, 4th verse. Philippians, the first chapter, the 4th verse. Always praying joyfully in every one of my prayers for all of you, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. I am convinced of this, that the one who began a good action among you will bring it to completion by the day of Messiah Yeshua. And he began it here in the temple. Let's go to John, the 7th chapter, the 37th verse. We're almost over, but this is something we do, and I want to give a little background on it. We usually on that last day, we ask everyone to line up here. Ministers come forward. We will anoint every one of you for any problem you have. That all began in the temple with Yeshua, our Messiah. John, the 7th chapter, the 37th verse. And those who say that, oh, they didn't keep the feast days, please note this scripture. John, the 7th chapter, the 37th verse, and notice what it says here. Now on the last day, the great day of the feast, that's this day, Yeshua stood and cried, saying, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. And he that believes on me, as the scripture has said, from within him shall flow rivers of living water. We don't have a pool of Siloam from which to draw water and throw it through. But here's what we're going to do. We're asking Pastor Ray Hall to come up. Pastor Wendell Weesey, if you will come up. We'll sing one final song. We'll say a final prayer. And if anyone has any problems, if you will line up here. Thurman, if you'll come forward. I'm going to duck out for a second. I'll be right back. And we will continue.